My name is Frida Sidoroff. I'm the founder and producer of the Garifuna International Indigenous Film Festival, with a focus on the preservation of all Indigenous cultures.
Step for man's cry echoes. Step across rough water. Step until she rises. The eye of the sea. Step a woman's cry echoes. Across a deaf nation, until she is heard clearly. A woman's cry echoes in the ears of a child. Until she's heard clearly and moves the woman in me. Stand up, stand up.
Every pebble, every grain, connected, embedded in my DNA strain. I am every frequency, every sound created by forces within me. I am every thought, every relay, every delay. I bring it to action. I am protons and neutrons and black matter and cosmic clatter. I am the melanated being, the universe, in whole. I am.
Welcome to Garifuna International Indigenous Film Festival. This is the 9th year. Witi Ramboveyu, Shiluha Duwama Ramboveyu Le, Tuon Garifuna International Indigenous Film Festival. Uwe Rambovele presentando Daba Libu, Luagu, Suceso. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Muy buenas tardes para todos los que están aquí presentes con nosotros. Has llegado a Garifuna International Indigenous Film Festival. Este es el nuevo año de festivos. Has llegado aquí esta noche. Tenemos unas mujeres fenomenales que van a compartir un buen momento sobre el libro que se llama Battle Scars Now Sings Melody of Victory, volumen 2. Bienvenidos. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us. This is quite the honor, quite the privilege, and quite the opportunity. So I am Toccara Nicole. My government name is Toccara Nicole Steele. I am the proud founder of Voss Consulting and Publishing, and it is quite an amazing journey just to follow what God has given you. In reference to your gifts, your calling, your purpose, and encompassing it all together. And that's what I do at Voss Consulting and Publishing. So I have the honor of all these amazing women who are here that are a part of this book project, who believed in the vision from day one, who have been so open and vulnerable to share their stories. And I'll share a little bit of where the vision came from. Literally, it was a 3:00 a.m. Inspiration from God. I literally remember rolling over, heard it clear as day while I was sleeping, and I literally just leaped out of my sleep, and I heard, "My battle scars now sing melodies of victory," and I cried. I said, "God, what do you want me to do with this?" And he said, "This is a co-authored book project that you're going to talk about in different volumes in reference to how battle scars now sing melodies of victory, in reference to different areas of life, not just for women, but just as a whole, the things that we talk about that we don't talk about, right? We talk about them on a surface level, but we don't go below that and really be vulnerable enough to share how we got from point A to point Z. We leave all that in between out. We leave the nights where we cried, the nights where we might have tried to attempt suicide, the times where we tried cutting ourselves, the times where we wanted to drive off the cliff, the times where we wanted to give up on life, the times, all those times that we talk about, that's the battle times. And so we don't talk about these things. And so God literally, when I said he made me like literally jump out of my sleep with this idea, I wrote it down. And literally just ask God, what else should I do? So this was the first volume of this, and I'm looking forward to incorporating men's stories in reference to the things that they go through, especially our African-American men that feel that they have to be the superhero and can't be vulnerable enough to talk about the things that they have to go through just to be a man in what we call today America. We have our book coming out on Black Friday, and so we're pre-selling on Black Friday. Super excited. It's been a journey.
Wow.
It's been tears. It's been laughter. It's been, if you don't cut this out of your chapter, we're going to cut you out of the book project. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just been a journey. And so just very thankful to have gone through it with, I couldn't have asked, I'm going to cry, but I couldn't have asked for a better bunch of women to go through this process with.
How long it took you guys to write this book?
I think I did the call for action in either May or June, somewhere around there. And what I know about this process is that people fall off because for whatever reasons. Sometimes people think that they're ready to tell their story, and then when they start to get in the middle of it, they're like, I'm not ready. And I encourage people, I tell people, don't bleed on your community. Don't bleed on someone who's going to pick up this book and need your story, your testimony to be a healing, and you're not ready to share. This book is phenomenal. And I'm not just saying that because I am the creator of it. I'm saying it because I couldn't have done it with a better group of women who were ready to share and understanding that their testimonies literally speak volumes for someone else as well as them.
So how it came to your mind to gather all these stories from different avenues and join them together? What came through your head to say, well, I could do it this way?
A lot of people would say, oh my God, I wouldn't even attempt to do that. And I was like, no, I'm going to challenge to do it because I know it can be done successfully.
What type of message would you send out there if there is anybody out there in our panel listening to you and they have a quite idea in their mind to write, but they don't know where to start, where to go?
Absolutely. So I tell people to start with brain dumping and organize that when you're ready to deal with it, according to what message do you want to give? What do you want people to take away from your story? What help are you willing to be really vulnerable about in reference to help somebody else? What does that look like for you? And a lot of times it's what we didn't get ourselves that we're willing to give through our stories. There is somebody that needs to hear what you've gone through.
Absolutely.
Deidra, Stadmire, Washington. I think we are in a time where voice matters more than anything. As a country on a global scale, we are all like bound.
What is your favorite part of the book?
Actually, I think it was the middle, and I put it into beginning, middle, and end because it was a writing piece, but it was so emotional. In the book, I really touch on me coming through adolescence and how the loss of my mother at a young age was kind of like a turning point for me to deal with some troubled waters. And in that, I found myself searching for things that were no longer there or what I assumed was no longer there, and running into problematic relationships because of that. And then thinking that those toxic relationships were proving their love to me. When in reality, it's a form of self-sabotage.
Yes.
And as humans, that is what we do. When we feel like no one else is punishing us enough, we go harder, whether it's bad or good or whatever. And so I thought that that was going to work. And it took a long time for me. My journey has been an in-depth one for sure, which only stopped maybe about 10 years ago. The healing hasn't been that long, but it has been instrumental. And it has been grand. And so I am thankful that this project has allowed us to continue to heal, continue to help others heal, allow others to have a voice in which they didn't think they had. This is a topic, along with others that aren't even scratched the surface yet, as to how deep it goes and where it starts from and what the root cause is. Because things aren't just happenstance. There are steps that lead up to these situations. And once you come out of something, you learn how to identify those signs, you learn how to identify your triggers, you learn how to maneuver through those places that you never thought you'd get out of before. So
wow.
The book's title is exactly what it is.
Wow. Yeah, it's really striking. When I first looked up the name, I was like, wow, I paused a little bit and then I was like, yes, I get it. So you would say that this project is part of your healing?
Absolutely. Writing allows you to go to depths of yourself that you aren't willing to go to normally because of fear, because of whatever that case may be. And writing opens those doors up and opens those portals up and allows you to spend time with your natural self. And all those things that we've pushed down, that we have covered up and threw paint on and all of that, we're starting at the dirt.
Right. And we all know that domestic violence doesn't have a face, doesn't have a gender, doesn't have a color. So what would you suggest to someone if someone is sitting right now watching us and they are just going through it and they don't know how to get out, they don't know what to do? What kind of message would you send that person?
I would say that there are family and friends who unfortunately don't know how to even come to you to ask you if you need help. I encourage you to go to them. I encourage you to do whatever it is to make yourself safe, to make your children safe, to make sure that this time next year you will be in attendance.
So in regards to your healing process in writing this book, what was it that you realized through the writing process?
I realized that there were things in my current relationships that I was still displaying hurt behavior. And by that, I mean, there are times when I get over defensive. There are times when I cannot fully express and I get frustrated and I shut down. And then there are times when I'm over the top and fully dramatic because I feel like my voice has not been heard. And so those things I'm still working on and still working with. And I feel as if domestic violence is not all of a sudden. It is a series of events. It is a series of living style. It is a series of what your norm is. I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s, and my mother was a young mom. And my mother was a fighter. And I've seen my mom fight men, women, whatever the case may be. And I've also seen my father in and out of my life try to be that big muscle guy. And so my mentality growing up was, till the ripe age of 9, my mentality was, this will never, no one will ever put hands on me. Put hands. No one will ever put hands on me. I'm not that type of, and I had that fighting spirit too, and still do. However, at the age of 9, with the tragedy happening and the loss of my mother, who was my sole provider, who was my everything. I felt abandoned. I felt lost. I felt like the one thing that God gave me, he had taken away. And should I have any more love left? I went through a dark period, and I believe that's what drove me to a continuous set of spousal abuse, violence, and the way that we think and the way that we grow up plays a large role in how we find ourselves in these situations. And then not able or feeling closed in and bottlenecked, and then having that breakthrough and finding ourselves again. And so it's a journey within a journey. And yeah.
I see you. I hear you. I lift you as well as hold a sacred place for you. Sing to me the melodies of your heart.
I am free. And that's all I can say.
Many blessings.
I am reading here on the chat. Someone is asking, I am still healing from a lot. How do you know when you have overcome the biggest hurt you thought you was from? As it shows up, I find myself reacting in the mannerisms like you state. I am completely defensive. Was your book published while you were still in the healing process? That's exactly where I am.
I think I can speak for all of the co-authors on the project to say that we are all still in healing mode. I don't know if the healing ever stops. I think we get to higher heights of it. I think that we evolve. And what I can say to you is everyone's journey is totally independent and personal. And when you come to that point of the breakthrough, you will know it, and you will know it wholeheartedly.
I definitely will say you said it, Deidre. It's a journey that is personal, and my situation happened almost 20 years ago, and what I'm realizing now that I'm in that most healthiest relationship that I've ever been in, with someone who loves me deeply inside and out, my flaws and everything, and that I still have these moments where I react as if he is my abuser. And so I have to literally consciously make myself aware of those moments to not put those areas that are still healing, inflicting those wounds on him. So, and he challenged me one day, and maybe he'll get an opportunity to watch this. I said, you can forgive, but you'll never forget. And he took me to the word. And I was like, darn, I forgot about this man of God that I'm in a relationship with. He hit me straight up with scripture. And I will say that we were talking about different elements of what my abuser did and didn't do. And I'm starting to forget some of it. Literally starting to forget some of the things that were done, were said, the events that happened. When we were having an in-depth conversation, I was like, I don't remember that. And so, that whole but he did it in love, of course. But it made me realize that this thing is, first of all, you have to be very intentional with wanting to get healed. There's a lot of people who would want to stay stuck because it's comfortable. I always talk about going around the mountain instead of going up the mountain. At least when you go around the mountain, you know at what hump, what to do, when to do, how to do, because you've been here before. You know how to experience that pain. You know how to get over it. But when you go up, it's a whole nother ball game. And when you go up, you have to let go, because there's some things that just can't go up with you anymore. And so just being able to understand and give yourself grace. That's what a lot of people don't do. Give yourself grace while you're on this healing journey, because what looks like, what one journey looks like for somebody else might not look like for you, and that's okay. But be real with yourself. If you cry, if you scream, if you, whatever you do to release, don't judge yourself on this healing journey, but be real with yourself and say, you know what, I'm striving every day to be a healed individual, and what that looks like for me is indeed for me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we out here, we're going to present our other two phenomenal women, which is Janet Mack and Desiree Odell. Welcome to our platform.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good evening, good evening. Oh
Amen.
my God, this has been a journey. And as she just eloquently said, you know, we're still in our healing process, even though we were able to release a lot through the book. My experience was very challenging. First, I'm a first time author, and I thank Toccara for pushing me out of my comfort zone and saying I have a voice. I have something that people need to hear, and she teaches that to us. She constantly reminds us of that, because many times when we are not in our domestic violence situation and we are now freed from it, as she shared, you start forgetting about the trauma, and you forget until you're faced in the face of it again. And then there's a trigger, bam. And then where you thought you were healed and you were over it because you forgot, or that you let it go into the back of your subconscious mind, now it here is facing you. And how do you deal with that? How do you address that? Hopefully, at the time that you have that moment, you're strong enough to recognize it. But many times those triggers cause you to fall back and go into another phase and become a victim all over again. And sometimes we do self hurt, as one of the sisters said. You know, you begin to doubt yourself. You begin to have all of those thoughts come back into your head that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy, that, wow, I thought I was healed from this, but I see I'm still hurting from these events that take place. I'm still triggered by these events. How do I get over that? And so you have to be patient with yourself, and you have to continue to find love, continue to love yourself in spite of, because sometimes, we have a false understanding of what love is. We're misconstrued and have a misconception of what love is and true love. She shared about her mother leaving her at a young age. I lost my father right in the prime of my teenage years at 18. And through my battle with abuse, I was in my most crucial moment with my abuser. We were in a major trial. He had made many attempts against my life, and who would need a father at that point in time going through something so horrific? But I didn't have my dad there for me to lean on. He had passed away, and I was faced with having to go through this trial alone, not having that man presence, not having that man's perspective. And um, and so that was a very difficult, very, very frightening experience for me. But I thank God that I went through it. I thank God that it allowed me to even find more strength within myself. And one thing that I learned in all of the situations that I was in is resilience. I really understood the word resilience and perseverance, because against all odds, I kept pushing and I fought, and I rose up above it. And so we have to rise above and look higher. And who do we look to when we have no one? We look to God. I look to God. I had to switch my mindset to say, if God is for me, who can be against me? I had to stand and declare that I was worthy and that I was not going to be a punching bag. I was not going to allow anyone to brainwash me, bring me through all types of emotional trauma and disbelief in myself. And so I petition to each of you on the platform and those who are listening in, find your strength within, find your voice. You have a voice. And when you speak, the universe listens. When you speak, those abusers know. When you stand up and say, I won't take this anymore, it makes the enemy tremble because we are created in God's image. We are a fashion of Him. And so when He spoke into the universe and He created, it existed. It came to be. So we see the stars, the moon, we see everything that's present in front of us. And so God continued to remind me of that. If I can take care of the birds in the air, if I can take care of the ants on the ground, if I can, make sure that you have a covering over your head, then you have power within and you have the power to change. And that's what I had to hold on to because I was abandoned from my family. I was kicked out. I was a preacher's kid. My parents were pastors. And that whole dynamics of, oh, holy than thou, oh, you're so good, you can't, do no wrong. And, oh, God, you have the anointing all over you. But you have to have a one-on-one relationship with God. You can't walk in the shadow of your father or your sister or brother or whoever is in your life anointing. Each and every one of us on this platform have their own gift and anointing that God has blessed us with. And when we tap in to that inner person, that strength, and find your purpose, it's then that you rise above whatever situation you may find yourself in. It's then that you find the fight to say, I am not going to take it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing with us. Next, we do have Desiree Odell. How are you?
I am doing wonderful.
So can you talk to us a little bit about your journey with this ladies, about the book? Just give us a little bit of insight.
This has been an amazing journey for me. This is my first time ever writing a book. This is basically really my first time ever telling my story. This happened about, I want to say maybe 20 years ago, a little bit more. Even my family had no idea about the abuse that I was enduring. And it was an experience that I never saw any, domestic violence, hadn't been around it before. And at the time I was in the military and I was away from my family. I was alone. And it was just a uphill battle. I had children, and at that point in my life, I was young. Like I said before, I was away from my family, so I really didn't even know how to begin to even deal with it. It was more so I would see people, or hear things about, on TV, if you're going through domestic violence, you could reach out. But it was more of almost an embarrassment, being embarrassed, don't want to reach out, don't want to let anybody know what I'm going through because I was afraid of I was shamed. I was afraid of what people would say, what people would think. And when Toccara came to me with this idea, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and tell my story. This for me, this being a part of this book is just the beginning for me. It is the beginning. It has opened up so many more opportunities for me. It has gave me a chance to be a voice for other young women out here and be a voice for those women who don't have a voice and who are afraid to speak on it.
I'm just listening to you guys. And yesterday we had another discussion similar to this story that you are talking about. And I was just thinking about how highly it's important therapy, because I know there's a lots of different type of therapy out there.
Yes. in my life, even after I left that relationship, I was still hurt. I was this angry Black woman. And I carried that on to another relationship. And going to therapy, it helped, but being a part of this book has helped even more. It has tremendously played a big part in my healing. And I'm so thankful, I'm so grateful to be a part of this. This has been amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So when you was first introduced to this idea, what were you thinking? You know, were you surprised, or you was like, why me?
Well, she kind of put it out there in a platform, like what ladies would be interested. And I thought about it a little bit. And just with everything going on with COVID, I'm almost an empty nester. My older children are gone now. And I'm like, this wouldn't hurt at all. This would maybe help. Let me jump out here and see what would happen. What could be the worst outcome of this? So I was just like, you know what? It's my time. And if it's, I prayed about it and I just said, if it's not my time, something will happen and it won't develop. And it just continued to develop and I didn't stop. I just continued.
Did you thought about the reactions of your story, about whoever, abused you? Did you thought about that? How they were going to react, or the family members reading your stories?
No, because I wanted my story told. It's now my time for my healing. So I didn't care. It's not about him anymore. This is my life. This is my time to tell my story. And I didn't care, I shared it with my children, and because the abuser was their father, and I wholeheartedly got their percent. I got their support 100%. So that's all that mattered. Him and his feelings and his family, it didn't matter. It was about me healing and my children, because even though they were young at the time, they're young adults, they're in the world, they're becoming parents. And even though they didn't physically see the abuse, and with me not being fully healed, it has affected them. It has an impacted on their lives as well. So it was just like almost an awakening moment. Like, I need to do this. I have to get this story out. It has to be told.
So Desiree, if you had to do it all over again, what decisions would you make, as well as what advice would you have for women who have gone through the same experiences that you have?
At that first red flag, at that first sign of discomfort, I would left. As hard as it may have been, I would have had to walk away. As much as I felt like I was in love, I would have had to walk away. Knowing what I know now, because it's all about preserving yourself. And what I would tell to a lot of other women and men in this situation, get help. That person that you think you cannot go to, you can. After all this was said and done, when I decided to leave, I went back home to my parents. And my mom said to me, she was just waiting for me to ask for help. She knew, but she knew that if she intervened, that I probably would have left and went back. She was waiting for me to say when enough was enough. And just go reach out to whoever you can. Trust me, there's somebody there that will help you. Whether you know it or not, there are many, many people who have been in that situation. Don't deny yourself that freedom. Don't deny yourself that peace. You are deserving of it. So just go and get help. If it's sending someone a private message on Facebook, if it's writing a letter to a loved one and you're afraid to talk to them one-on-one, if it's going to a coworker who you're close with, if it's to a neighbor, if it's just to someone that you strike up a conversation with in the line in the supermarket, be a voice for yourself. You have to be a voice for yourself. It is very hard, but you have to.
What would you say were the red flags initially?
The verbal abuse, the little things of the way things were changing as far as being treated, just blatant disrespectful, just not showing me the respect that I was given in the beginning.
And so one last question. So what would you say to the individual who was abusing you?
So basically you're asking me pretty much what would I say to my abuser?
To speak on your behalf back to that individual, what would you say to him?
And actually I have, because that's my 3 older children's father. I've spoke with him some years ago and I told him, thank you. Thank you for treating me the way you did, because now I know my worth. And there can never be another person that will walk into my life and be able to treat me the way you did. He made me the strong woman that I am today. My mother and my father created me, but he played a big part in making me the strong woman that I am. I am past the hurt. I am in my healing process, and part of my healing process was to thank him for doing the things he did to me, because now I know my worth. I know how I should be treated.
Michaela Perry and Elaine Prioleau. Welcome.
Thank you all for having me. I'm a preacher's kid and pastor's kid, preacher's kid, and I grew up in a home where there was domestic violence. I witnessed my father beating my mother. And because we had to keep a certain persona, or I call it a facade, because it was fake. What we were showing people on the outside was definitely not what was going on behind closed doors. And what it did was it gave me a false sense of what relationships and marriage was supposed to be like. My brother never acknowledged, he never talked about what went on, so I couldn't confide in him. He and I were close to the same age. My older sister didn't live with us. She was grown because we were adopted, so we were a lot younger than my older sister. And so I didn't have anybody to talk to, because I definitely could not tell people outside of the home what was going on. And my brother he didn't want to acknowledge what was going on. And it was one of those things, you don't tell anybody what happens behind closed doors. You keep your business at home. And unfortunately, that's what happens to so many people. They're taught not to tell what goes on behind closed doors. And so many people are being hurt and abused and manipulated and defiled because of that. And so as I got older, it became one of those things that this is what you're supposed to do when you get married. I got married young. Let me back up. I witnessed I witnessed physical abuse, and then I was abused emotionally, mentally, physically, so it was one of those things where it was so normal for me that if it wasn't happening, I thought something was wrong, because that became a norm for me. So I got married young, and the gentleman that I married started to be physically abusive to me. And again, I thought that's what was supposed to happen when you got married. You were supposed to take it. You know, it was going to be all right. It was going to get better. And it didn't get better. It didn't get better. I tell people, I said one instance where I thought that I was getting my strength, and I thought that I was going to be a fighter, and I was going to fight for myself and my kids, because I had 3 young children at the time. And I remember one day in particular, my husband had beat me, and he took the phone cord and wrapped it around my neck because I tried to call for help. And I literally thought that I was going to die. And my son, who was a toddler, came around the corner and said, you know, Mommy, what's wrong? And it stopped. He stopped what he was doing. And one particular incident, I was determined that night one of us was going to die. My abuser or myself, one of us was going to die, because I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. And he got drunk that night, and that night I sat on top of him with a pillow because I was going to kill him. And I knew at that particular time that there was no possible way that this was going to keep going on. Because first of all, I loved my kids. You were not going to take me from my kids. That was number one, you know. But the second part was, there has got to be, you can't convince me that this is the way that I'm supposed to live the rest of my entire life. There's no way you can convince me of that, you know. And so unfortunately, and this person, it was my husband, unfortunately he got killed in a car accident. And you would think that I was free. You would think that at that point it was like, I'm free. But what happened then is, because I had lived a dysfunctional life so long and it had become such a part of me, I then started to abuse myself. I had my children, and I moved back down to, I was living in New York. I moved back down to North Carolina with my parents. And now, mind you, my parents had tried to step in before, and I was like, no. My brother and his friends had tried to step in before. No, I love him. He's going to change, you know, the whole thing. But I moved back down with my parents, and I started to abuse myself because I still needed to be loved. And I was still willing to take whatever anybody was willing to give me. It didn't matter how it came. You were paying attention to me, and that was all that I wanted. So when I say the healing process has been years, I was, by the age of 23, I was a widow with 3 children under the age of 5. So I didn't have time to heal. You know, I didn't have time to heal. I had to take care of kids. So I didn't actually start to heal. People say I just found out I was this years old when I found out I needed to heal. So I was grown. And I was a grandmother. I was a grandmother. I had been married again. My kids were grown when I really started to recognize my value. And it's still a healing process going on, because there are certain things every now and then. If somebody's voice gets to a certain level, it's like, hey, what? They look a certain way, or you say something, they stop, and you go, oh, my bad. But then there's that something that clicks in you and say, hey, chill, come on. Say what you said. Repeat don't be scared to say what you said. And, you know, if you said it, say it, you know, that sort of thing. So it's a long process, but it took me years to get to that point. So I say to anybody who is listening, please don't feel like you have to wake up one morning and be this complete change and be this whole person and be this happy-go-lucky person and the world is full of butterflies and daisies. It doesn't have to be. And to somebody else's point, and I put it in the chat, they were saying, you know, it's about forgiving yourself. One thing that I learned, and this is what God revealed to me, it may not apply to everybody else, but one thing he said to me is, when you feel like you can't forgive yourself, then you're telling yourself that my forgiveness is not enough for you. He said, because I have forgiven you of all things, stop walking in regret and guilt and condemnation. So it's not up to us to say, I can't forgive ourselves. God gives us all the forgiveness that we need. All we have to do is receive it and walk in it. But it's a process that we have to go through. I could go on and on. I'm sorry.
So Elaine, what would you say was the breaking point, as well as reflecting back on your experiences? How have aspects of your experiences served as stepping stones to where you are now?
Because I'm in a place now where I'm walking in what God's purpose is for me. And if I had not gone through those things, then I wouldn't be able to fulfill my purpose. I had to be hurt. I had to be broken. I had to be abused. I had to be abandoned. I mean, if I could tell you my story starts from the day that I was born. It doesn't start, my abuse started the day that I was born. I was abandoned, left on the side of the road, literally. So I had to go through all of those things to get to where I am today, so that I can tell somebody that's listening there, listen, it's dark right now. It hurts right now. It sucks right now. You're probably pissed right now. You're probably hurt right now. You're probably clueless right now, but that's just right now. So this is that was part of my purpose. That's why I have butterfly transitions. That's, you know, for my ladies and for my children. That's why I have that. That's why I have the book that's coming out. That's why, you know, I'm a paparazzi consultant, but I don't do it for the money. It's because my purpose is to lift up women and to help them to heal. And if my story helps them to do that, if one thing that I went through helps somebody else either not to go through it or to lift them up from wherever they are, then it was worth it.
What is the one or two messages that you would like to deliver to, you know, to those not only on the platform, but to youths that are also coming into their own and finding their way?
I think one of the things that I would say is we have to not be so quick to think with our hearts. The Holy Spirit dwells within us. So if you feel that little nudge, if you feel that something that's just not right, even if you are wrong, you could be wrong as two left shoes, but if it's not comfortable for you, don't worry about what other people might think. Don't worry about what they might say. If it's uncomfortable for you, if you don't like it, if it doesn't make you feel good, if it doesn't bring you some peace, if it doesn't bring you some joy, it's okay to say, I'm out. It's okay. It is okay. It is okay. It's okay to say, no, I don't like that. No, I don't like what you're doing to me. It's okay to say that. And I think another thing would be to recognize or pray and ask God to help you recognize who you are in Him and say, we are beautifully and wonderfully made. But those are just the words that we speak. Yes. Until we can really see ourselves through the eyes of God as to who we really are. Those are just words. But we do have to know our value. We do have to know our worth. It's really important too that we find that place to heal, because our children, our grandchildren, people that we don't know about are watching. And I'll say that because unfortunately my daughter, my oldest daughter, she's married now and she's been with her husband now. They've been together for some years, but it was a volatile domestic violence relationship. And I know that she had picked up some of those things from what she had seen me deal with. And even though she was small, she tells me sometimes, she says, well, Mama, I remember when this used to happen. I remember when that used to happen. I was like, but you were so little. She says, but I remember. So it's important for our healing, not just so we can help other people, but there are people that are watching us, and there are people that are walking in our footsteps. And so when she started going through her situation, I was like, God, I said, this chain has to be broken.
Amen.
So thank God the chain has been broken. They don't have that issue anymore. Thank the Lord. But it brought to my mind how people are watching and people are taking note, and it is planting a seed, even though we don't think that it is. And healing is detrimental, not just for ourselves, but for the other people that are looking at us and watching.
What makes you sing? What makes you dance? What brings joy to your spirit?
So many. This is not a song that would necessarily make you dance, but one of my favorites is It Is Well With My Soul. And that's one of my favorites, because the thing is, you can be in the middle of a storm and everything around you can be falling down and be torn all to pieces. But God will give you peace right there in the middle of your storm. And that's what I have had to rely on. That was my dad's favorite song. I used to hear him singing all the time. But when I got older is when the words really started to resonate with me.
I never really told my story to anyone, to be honest. And I was young. And most of all I do want to say is that I didn't love myself. And I was looking for love in the wrong places. And because of that, it took me down some roads I wasn't expecting to go down. But, 20 years later, I realized that those were all lessons. So every challenge we have in life, there is a lesson to be learned. So with the negative, there is a positive. So for me, I just try and change every negative of my past into a positive. So with that, you overcome. It's your perspective of how you look at your story. And right now, I look at my story as a great, big, huge learning experience that have awakened me into a new person. So with that, I have found my power, I have found my voice. And some days are easier than others. And, I continue to grow. I continue to challenge myself. And I learned that from darkness came light. So in your darkest moment, there is a bright side to there. You just have to push through the darkness. And that's what I learned to do, is just push through all of the dark moments. And that is what I'm continued to do. And COVID has definitely been a challenge. I hear so many people say how this year have been, the worst year of their lives and so many negativities. But honestly, I see a lot of positive. With crisis comes new. So there is something beautiful on the other side. We just have to get through it right now. I was completely vulnerable in my writing my story. I said things that I've never even repeated to anyone. And with that, I learned that there's power in my words. Letting it out, it no longer held those chains on me. I was able to actually look back at things and realize, wow, I overcame that, and look at me now. He did not break me. He only made me stronger. It wasn't mental abuse. It was verbal abuse. And a lot of times with verbal abuse, what we don't realize is how hearing those words over and over again, subconsciously, you start to believe those negative words. And you look at your life and you realize that it didn't just affect you in your relationship, it affected you at your job. It affected you with how you raised your kids. It affected you, how you spoke to a stranger. I am in the process of deprogramming that. And it's a beautiful process. It doesn't take overnight. It's a long journey, but I'm a warrior. Like I said, I've never done this before. So, this is the beginning.
Absolutely. And Michaela, you mentioned that you didn't love yourself. And I was thinking about that. How do you teach someone that don't know how to accomplish those things? Maybe you didn't grow up without it. Nobody told you, that you have to love yourself, and you get to a certain age, you're still doubting. How do you get to that level to say, okay, then this is me and I'm going to take care of me? How do you teach someone that?
You first have to realize and understand that God loves you. And being that God loves you, he loves you exactly the way that you are. He made you perfectly the way that you are. So you are God's biggest and greatest creation ever. There is something great in all of us. We just have to uncover it. And I believe that is what everyone needs to try, is to uncover that, that thing that you bring to the world.
And so, Michaela, so in writing this, in participating in this project, share with us your feeling when you first heard or received the invitation to participate.
Honestly, I was kind of hesitant. I was excited. It was a beautiful idea. I was hesitant myself, only because I've never done it before. So I really felt like this is my opportunity to step out of my comfort zone. So I felt like, well, that was a sign from God. She came right at the right time in my life where I was able to put my guards down and just jump 2 feet in. And when I got to know her soul, it was no question like, oh, okay, I'm in. Let's do this. There was no second thoughts as far as, working with her. It was more personal as far as, oh crap, am I ready for this? I am ready. And every day I'm stepping outside. So
describe to us your healing process and what parts of you were touched, and the moments where you experience yourself breaking open.
I actually went through a spiritual warrior class that really made me think outside the box. I was challenged in ways that I was never challenged before. I had to go back to my childhood and uncover things that I thought that I had healed from, that I didn't realize I wasn't healed from. It really made me get down to the core of when everything started, because it all starts from our childhood, whether we have good or bad, that's where everything starts. And once we realize that we have to go back there to heal, the layers just start peeling off. Now with that, I have stayed in contact with the little cohort groups that they created within the spiritual warrior training class. And I believe someone said earlier that you definitely need to have a small circle of like-minded people that can help you. And that's exactly what those ladies have been. And we've learned a lot of tools, things to kind of help you every day. One of those things is talking to that critic and telling the critic to shut up and sit down somewhere. You have to know your good side, and you also have to know your bad side. You got to control that bad side. It's a daily process.
When you reflect on the title of your book, how do you find yourself connecting with it, relating to it, as well as healing from from the piece that you contribute to supporting making this a whole?
You know, honestly, when I heard the title, I could basically see white dove. I don't know what that symbolizes. A lot of times I'll see images and I don't really understand. Sometimes, you know, these images that I see. But with that, I knew that there was something that needed to be broken. So the title itself, it's deep for me personally.
Thank you, Michaela.
One of the scriptures it references when the people were in captivity, they say, how can we sing a song in a strange land? It's hard to sing sometimes when you find yourself in a dark place. Being able to come out with a song of victory and still be able to look at yourself scarred, healed scars, and still be able to sing, that in itself is a sign of victory. When I look and I can sing now, my battle scars are singing. I can look at myself and I see the physical reminders of what I endured. That fuels the flame to help me sing even more, because I can still have that reminder of what I did go through or what I did endure.
Elaine and I have a very similar story, but in this time of pandemic and lockdown, God a lot of times uses songs for me in my time of prayer and worship in the morning. And when Toccara told me the name, and I was like, ooh, you know, I'm always singing melodies to God, and He gives me download songs that aren't even written. And then I started thinking about my victories, how God brought me through every trial, every test, and it's worthy, you know, of praise, because I, had it been the other way around, wouldn't be sitting here before you ladies today. This whole experience have been very painful, but yet it's been very joyful. If I can say that's an oxymoron. It's been hard to come to the face of what I've been through and had to relive it, but at the same time, it forces me to sing praise, to thank God that I can look back over my life and see where He's brought me from a mighty long way, from being shot at, from beaten and stepped on like a piece of trash, kicked to the ground. And then now I've survived it all. That's worthy to be praised.
We've all traveled our own individual journeys, but we've definitely traveled a section of it together. And that has empowered us. It has renewed our strength in ourselves, in society, in our personal circles. We have found a sense of security in different areas that we did not before. And so I think that is huge. Because as a human being, you need security, you need those things. And when you don't have them, just your inner world is chaotic. And so I think that for each one of us, through the healing, it has restructured positive foundations. It has given us somewhere to walk from, a place to walk from. And so, yes, fear is broken, generational curses are broken. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so I encourage, all of us, each and every one of you ladies that I've spoken today, to keep up the good fight. I have been so transformed with this. I did not know you till today. Not one of you. My heart is full, and I thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you for bringing us to this platform.
But don't leave yet, because we still have a surprise for you guys. We have another sister, another lady that is going to enlighten us with some great music. She's a Billboard recording artist, soul food, Kayla Marin, with One Love. Kayla, take it away.
Oh, thank you.
Your love's lifting me higher than I've ever been lifted before. So keep it up, lifting my desire, and I'll be at your side forevermore, because your love keeps on lifting me higher and higher. Oh, your love keeps on lifting me higher and higher. Now once I was downhearted, and disappointment was my closest friend. Then you came along, and he soon departed, and he's never shown his face again, because your love keeps lifting me higher, higher and higher. Well, I said your love keeps lifting me higher, higher and higher. Oh, oh,
Beautiful. Get her.
do you feel it too? Come on now.